Howdy folks, welcome back to Boondockery. I'm off on a solo overnighter tonight, primarily to test out a new piece of kit. But before I get to my camp, I have a few obstacles I need to get rid of. Two missions completed. Number one, roadway clear until the next obstacle, if there is one. Number two, firewood, not only for tonight, but probably for the next several nights that I come out. Well, that looks a good bit better. Time to load back up. Well, I finally made it to camp, or the area that I'm going to be camping in. There were 3 more deadfalls. They were dead, had been dead for a very long time, and they were across the road. Not huge in diameter, but they were extremely well seasoned oak. And yeah, I'm going to be doing some blade sharpening when I get back to the house. I did get some of this for firewood, but not a lot because it is so incredibly hard. But this piece will burn for a very long time, and it will put off a tremendous amount of heat. And I sectioned them up to where I laid them on the side of the trail on some other logs, so they're up off the ground, so I can come back and harvest the firewood for these. But yeah, lumberjacking's done. Time for camping. Now, I haven't been wild camping for a good little while. Tons of reasons for not going into it. But I am, like I said, I'm going to test out a new piece of kit. Well, actually, I brought out several pieces of gear that I'm going to be trying out this weekend. And the one that we're going to focus on in this video is the Onewind Skyshade Tartent. And it is more than a bivy shelter, but not quite a tent. And we're going to find out all about it together. Before I break it out, there is one thing I personally found humorous, but I discovered it nonetheless. The word Tartent. And I believe that Onewind was shooting for Tarp Tent. However, just go ahead, as soon as I tell you what to do, you're going to pause the video, and then you're going to go to the Urban Dictionary. Or just go ahead and ask Mr. Google Pants, what's the definition of Tartent? T-A-R-T-E-N-T. Okay, go ahead and pause, look it up, Urban Dictionary, and then come back. Yeah. Personally, I'd never heard the term Tartent. I didn't know if that was one of the many things in the camping bushcrafting world that I was unfamiliar with as far as vocabulary goes, because I'm learning every single time I come out and do this stuff. Seeing how Tartent is only defined in one area and one source, I personally found it pretty hilarious. Let's break it out. Now, first of all, and I know you can't get that out of your head. You're still thinking about it, aren't you? Just try to push it out out of your head, okay? Okay, the Onewind Skyshade Tartent comes in a very nice compression style stuff sack, and this is basically an unboxing. I haven't had it out yet, and let's see. We go ahead and loosen those up. That might all be inside the tent. Okay, so this is the shelter. Nice olive drab. The majority of it is made of sil nylon. The bottom is made of a heavier material. It's very, very simple. Very simple. All of this is one component. You have, I believe it's 8 tent stakes, tent pegs, whatever you want to call them. I know different people call them different things. So we have 8 of these. We have 2 guy lines and a little sack. If you're new to the channel, well, I'd say it's about 2 summers ago, I bought a whole bunch of stuff from Onewind because so many of the subscribers had, you know, recommended it and did comparisons to different products I was reviewing and using when I was out camping. So I gave it a try. I bought like an entire hammock camp and with a whole bunch of accessories. And I used it extensively. I think I made like 4 videos on it. And one of the things I did not like were these tent stakes. They're notched on one side and they had a tendency to bend right here where these notches were, and I had a couple that actually broke off. And if you're dealing with hard soil or you're not very careful pulling them up out of the ground, mine broke, bent. So I just started using my tried and true Kaufman's aluminum tent stakes that you can get at Walmart for about $1 a piece. And so you have 8 of those, only 2 guy lines. And this shelter can be configured in a lot of different ways. And if you were to configure it in one of the ways to where you need a lot of guy lines, 2 is not going to do it. So, you know, that's just observations that I've been making through what I've seen on their website. And we also have the structure poles. I believe they're aluminum. They come in this bag. The bags are all made real well. That's the one thing that I did like with the other Onewind stuff I had. All of their stuff is made well. It's well thought out. And is it super heavy duty? Absolutely not. Is this more than acceptable for your average camper? Absolutely. And once you get in the habit of using all of the items that you get from Onewind, you know what it can and can't do. You know where its limitations are. I'll talk more about limitations after I get it set up. So we have tent stakes, structure poles, guy lines. I brought my own 550 cord, my own micro cord that I'm going to be using for guy outs. So let's go ahead and set this up in its most basic configuration. Now this is the Skyshade Tarp Tent bivy shelter in its most basic configuration. And just to put this in context as to exactly what a bivy shelter is, a waterproof bag that goes over your sleep system, like the USGI sleep system. And there's all kinds of other companies that make bivy bags. A bivy bag is a waterproof bag, like a sleeping bag, that your sleeping system, your sleeping bag, or whatever sleeping system you have, is inside of it. It's literally a cocoon. It doesn't provide any space in it other than for sleeping. A bivy tent is a very small one-person tent, like the Light Fighter. That happens to be my favorite bivy tent. And one thing you can do with a bivy tent that's very difficult to do with a bivy shelter is there's usually room to put a good bit of your gear in it. It usually has some type of a fly structure or vestibules built into it. So if there's not room to put your gear inside, you have room underneath the vestibule or the fly to keep it, safe from the environment, the elements. And the bivy shelter can go to extremes. I have a snug pack stratosphere. I call it my camping coffin because you have room for your sleep system in it. And then there's a framework just like the one with the Skyshade. And it lifts the shelter up off of your face and it keeps it up. And it's ventilated. There's a little bit of a bug net. There's a little vent behind, so you can open up a little bit, have some breathability, but there is not a lot, if any, breathability through the rest of the bag. So if it is a warm, humid day and that's your only shelter, you're going to be wet and sweaty the whole time you're in it. They have larger ones, like they think they have the ionosphere, which is a little taller, give you a little more room. If you're like so many people, your cell phone is your GPS, it is your camera, it is something that you will use. You can download entertainment on their, movies, music, what have you. So in the evenings, especially if it's raining or something like that, you could be inside your bivy shelter with the shelter up away from you, looking at whatever you want. You can be planning out your route on GPS, on maps, looking through your pictures you took that day, and have a little bit of space to do that, which you can't do with a bivy bag. And so the bivy shelter affords you something that the bivy bag can't, but it limits the amount of space you have compared to a bivy tent. Now, the idea of the tarp tent is a pretty good idea, in my humble opinion, simply because anytime that I've used my sleep system, a bivy bag to lay on the ground, if it's going to be questionable weather, I will either use my poncho or I'll use a small tarp and erect a shelter over that bivy bag so I can get dressed. I can do some limited things underneath of it because it's a fairly small tarp, especially if it's a poncho. But it enables me to be able to get in and out of the bivy bag if it's raining without getting the inside of my sleep system wet. Well, I do the same thing with my stratosphere bivy shelter, my camping coffin. I do exactly the same thing. And the idea of thing is, okay, well, you have a shelter in the tarp or the poncho, what's the point of having the bivy shelter? Well, if you've done a lot of camping in inclement weather, you know that rain blows, snow blows, things like that. And so during the course of the evening, if you have just a tarp shelter you can have a risk of having that moisture, whether it's snow or rain, coming in and getting your stuff wet. So the Bivy tents don't usually have that problem because they usually have a fly or a built-in vestibule with it. So whereas you have the tarp tent, this is a pretty decent thing because you have the room to get inside of it, change your clothes, do other things. But this cover here actually can perform a similar role to the tarp shelter, or what I would use a poncho for in conjunction with either a bivy bag or a bivy shelter. I'm going to point out a few of the basic construction points of this. You have 3 poles, 2 straight, 1 curved. They have sleeves for each one of them, and you have webbing loops down here, here, and up here. All of the webbing loops have grommets in them, and on the ends of all of the poles are small studs that will go through the grommets and will lock into position. It helps hold it good and taut. There's a back window with screen and a zippable curtain on the inside, a little awning here that can guy out back a little bit further. This helps keep everything in a good, tight configuration. The sides are identical, they're just mirror images of one another. You have a nice baffle over your zipper area. You can Velcro into place. You can manipulate that from the inside as well as you're zipping it up to get that closed. Down here at the bottom, you have a nice little pull through at the bottom of that baffle to where you can feed a bungee with a hook on it to just simply keep that from possibly allowing strong winds or anything to blow through. And that simply just hooks right into the little piece of cordage that's on the tent stake. You have about 2 inches, 2.5 inches of overhang over the zipper, and as you can see here, I'll talk more about that in a minute, but this is about a 3.5 inch bathtub bottom all the way around. Come around to the front, you have another guy out position. It's built in. These guy lines are already attached to the shelter, and in the corners there are rigid poles, little rigid rods that maintains the shape of this little structure. And here at the end, you can just barely see it, it's this dark band. There's about an inch, 1.5 inches of mesh that will allow air to draw through if you have the back window, the back curtain unzipped, which will allow airflow through the entire thing, which I think is a fantastic idea, and it limits a lot of that trapped moisture that gets in a bivy shelter like my Stratosphere. I went ahead and detached the hook and the corner bungees so I can show you the zip system on this. It's a 2-way zip on both sides. Both sides have this. So you can pull this all the way down to the bottom, and you can guy line these out on either side or just one, which allows a lot of airflow but gives you a good bit of protection from light rain or drizzle, and it still protects you from any of the moisture that could possibly get in. This is really important during the summer to allow the airflow to go through there. And if there's no chance of rain, you can just roll this up, and there is a loop and a toggle, and it'll get completely up out of the way. Now if you were wanting to really get a lot of ventilation, we are going to take this one back. over here and pull this one all the way to the front and the top one all the way to the top. And this enables you to be able to guy line this awning, vestibule, piece of tarp, whatever you want to call it, and different degrees and angles. You can go low, you go medium, you can go high, and just to prevent any of that rain from getting in, you can guy out the corners down here at the bottom, and if you're wanting to get in it and to just get this out of your way, like I'm going to be doing this when I start setting up my camp, as far as getting my sleep system in here. Roll it all the way up. Stick the sides out up through the side support poles, and then you can get in, fully access the interior. And like I said, the screen is zippered exactly as the fly, the top tarp, and you can get in and take care of that. There is also an inside pocket, which is right back here, and you can tuck your mosquito netting in there if you want to. And once you have done that, then you could also tuck the fly in there as well. But when you're setting up your camp, this is really nice because you're not having to fight the roof of it, and it just enables you to get everything into it, and then you zip it in a configuration you want. Like I said, you'll need to play around and experiment with the zippers to determine which of those zipper configurations where you're going to have the zippers meet, that's going to meet your needs. For me, I'm pretty much going to keep my mosquito netting zippers to where the top one and the one here on both sides is going to meet right here, so that way I can unzip it. I'm probably going to go ahead and guy out the corners, but keep the top on there. I'm going to go ahead and put my bedding in here, and that way you can see how much space is in here, which is fairly ample. I'll just go ahead and lay down here right now, let you see right off the top how big it is. I'm 5'9", and I have an easy foot from the top of my head to the back of the tarp, or the bivy shelter, and you can see I had almost a foot at the bottom portion of it. Ample room down here, and yeah, it's going to be a decent amount of space. Let's try something else out here. Look at this. This is something that is really, really rare with a bivy shelter, is I'm actually sitting up inside of this, which is a huge deal to me. And now granted, we're going to have the netting go down, and it's going to be playing with it a little bit to determine how I'm going to keep it configured. But for tonight, for my camp out, I'm going to have my tarp anchored out to the tent stakes there. I'm probably going to go ahead and guy line those out to the sides and just keep it to where my mosquito netting. The zippers are going to be here and here, so they go up and out so I can get in. Well, the ants are liking it already, so we'll go ahead and get the bedding in. Now all the way here in the back, there's a nice little pocket, just a little gear loft pocket. And what I thought was a pocket up here for the mosquito netting is actually the curtain. And the curtain has zippers on either side, and which allows full flow of that nice air, which you definitely want. And up here at the top, there is a hook and a little loop on the top of the curtain that you can just hook right in there to keep any of the rain that could possibly be forced in through wind to come in there. And you could also probably use that as a little hook to hang a lantern or something like that. And so yeah, that's a nice feature, being able to pull that really good and tight or open it up all the way. From everything I've seen, all of the seams have fantastic taping to them. They look really, really good all the way around. And so I'm pretty pleased with it so far. But we'll go ahead and get a couple other things squared away here, and I'll be ready for bed. Take a couple shots of different angles of this configuration here. The fly is completely out, guy lined out at the corners to the sides, and the mosquito net is in place. This would be an excellent setup for the summertime, where you want a lot of airflow to get in there, maybe not any chance of rain, keeps the bugs out. One thing I did want to point out is you get 8 tent stakes with this. 2, 4, 6, 7, which leaves you 1 to guy out anything. So I brought extra with me, so I was able to guy out this. Now the neat thing about using your trekking poles is that these are telescopic. You can go from this high position down to a medium or down to a low, and you know, however you would want to configure it. And it's a nice little thing. You can also just cut 2 sticks and literally move your loop bungee up and down the stick to get those different levels. That way, if by any chance you want to set your tent up or your tarp tent up, go for a hike, things like that, you're not sacrificing your trekking poles. That's one thing I've always had a problem with, especially ultralight tents, that their whole selling point is you don't need any hardware, you just use your trekking pole. Well, that's all fine and dandy if you don't want to really hike or do anything that you would use your trekking poles for once you set up camp. Pretty much my modus operandi, my whole thing is, as soon as I get to camp, I secure the camp, I look around, I check it out, make sure it's going to be a good location. I clear a spot, I set up my shelter. No matter what, that's always the first thing I do, is to set up my shelter. Then collecting the firewood, making certain that, you know, I have plenty of water. If there's a local water source, you know, scout all that stuff out. And then once my camp is set up, I go play. I go explore. I go do things. I do patrols. I do all kinds of stuff. And if I wanted to do that, and the trekking poles were the sole means of support for my shelter, you know, that wouldn't be a very good thing. But I always think it's the best thing is to set your camp up first. That way, if bad weather hits unexpectedly, you have shelter already erected, ready to go. So, but I know that this was a selling point that they were talking about, using trekking poles. You use trekking poles or sticks, either way it goes. But I'm going to go back. I'm going to leave it like this, and close to bedtime, just before dark. I'm going to go ahead and put this back down into its lowest position, and have the sides guide out a little bit to have a little bit of airflow through there. Well, that's it for tonight. I'll let you know how it went tomorrow morning. Good morning, folks. Happy morning, Joe. Trying to get woke up, but the tent did great. I mean, it's a tent. It's doing what it's supposed to do. I put some more of my bedding in before I went to bed. Had an inflatable air mattress and inflatable pillow, and it was as comfortable as sleeping on the ground can possibly be. And as far as the tent goes, I like that there's ample space in the tent for you to sit up completely. That's nice. There's no extra room where you really don't need room. I had no problem taking my clothes off, putting my clothes on inside the tent. I mean, you know, when you get my age, I mean, doing that in your bedroom is challenging enough. But yeah, it wasn't bad at all. Just like any small tent like this, any small shelter, you have to crawl out of it to get out of it. And so I would recommend putting some type of little ground cloth, ground sheet, something like that, because in the middle of the night, I got up to use the bathroom. I was crawling out, put my hand dead onto a great big huge slug, and but didn't bother me as much as it bothered the slug. But you know, it is what it is. There are all kinds of configurations for this shelter that I did not go over, and there's you know, quite a few of the features, you know, I've noticed with it that I did not go over, like the zippers for the fly, and the zippers for the mesh screen. The little bit of cordage that's on them, it's different colors, so they're color coded. There's all kinds of little things that, you know, you may not think that much of, but when you put them all together, yeah, those are pretty good features. And some of the features, you know, a lot of other bivy shelters, you know, just don't have. But the way they're designed, they may not need them. The Skyshade has more features than you will use. I'll put it like that. However, the options for those features are there. My recommendation is, if you decide to get something like this, or to get this specific shelter, play around with it. See what works for you. My idea of how I have it configured worked perfectly fine for my purposes. And I had a comfortable night's sleep. Anything I needed to do in the shelter, I had the room to do it. And, you know, I like it quite a bit. I will put a link to the website in the description box. I will also put screenshots from their website on the video after I sign off, and you can go through and check those out. That way you can pause them and look at them and stuff, get an idea if it's something you want to take your time to go to the website to see. It's compact, it's lightweight, very easy to set up. It's easy to sit up in it too, but it's easy to set up. And Teardown is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm simply going to take everything out of it, zip everything up, pull all the stakes, pull all the guy lines, and literally fold it into thirds, and then roll it up and put it back in its bag. And that's pretty much the way it came out of the bag. Probably some type of a ground sheet underneath of it, heavier, like if you're car camping, or you have maybe some 500 to 1000 D Kedora nylon fabric that you could lay down on the ground before you set up, basically the same width as the shelter itself. That will definitely prolong the life of your waterproof bathtub bottom floor. And because even here, I picked up every little stick I could, and even with a sleep pad, when I rolled off of it, I could feel pine cones and things like that. And all those things have little teeny tiny, itsy bitsy teeny weeny little pointy things on them that can poke up through the bottom of your shelter. Other than that, when I was making my Joe, those are the things that I thought of that I wanted to share with you. I think the price range is, my memory's not great. It's probably around $150, $150, somewhere around there. But I know that there's this tariff thing going around, and that may or may not affect pricing. I know there's been certain businesses, online, offline, that have been price gouging. They said it's because of the tariffs, and it's a flat out lie. I know Onewind has warehouses in the United States. They have a large inventory. A tariff would not affect anything that's already in the States. And there's all kinds of other companies that do the same thing, like One Tigress. That's another Chinese-based. These are Chinese-based, Chinese manufacturing. But the thing is, they are very good products, very innovative. I personally can't tell you how many products is on Onewind's website or on One Tigress's website, but there are a lot of products, good products. Onewind, they had this little spool ridgeline thing. I didn't like it. I bought it, didn't like it. So there's hit and miss with every company, not just the Chinese companies. But as far as quality and price, I think that Onewind and One Tigress both are great. And the one thing I have noticed, especially with One Tigress, and I'm certain that Onewind is like that as well, when they get feedback on a product, they actually change the product if the feedback they're getting is negative toward a certain feature or a certain design flaw, something like that, which I think is fantastic. There were probably companies here in the United States that were saying, oh, well, it's selling good enough, we're not going to change that. Sorry about that, but it stays as is. But I'm pleased with it. I am going to be taking it out a few more times this summer, and this, I think, is a fantastic summer tent. As far as winter goes, or extreme cold weather, I would not necessarily want this particular shelter
for extreme weather, primarily for wind. I don't know if that design would really hold up well in high winds. The fact that they only supply 8 tent stakes, when you have all of these other possible features that you can do which require tent stakes, I think is a mistake. They need to up that significantly. They need to have at least, I'd say 12, 10 to 12 would be good, probably 12. So you could do some of those more elaborate features and tie-outs. Definitely include more guy lines. Any aspect of their designs that they advertise on their website, I think that they should have a guy line for that feature if it requires a guy line. If not, I mean, who doesn't have all kinds of 550 cord laying around? And it's always in your kit, so make your own. It's not that big a deal. Also, the design of the tent stakes. I do not like the design of the tent stakes, and now it has rained where I live 3 to 4 days a week for the past month and a half. The ground is saturated, and the guy lines that I had with, especially with the trekking poles, when I was showing that, I had to replace those little tiny stakes repeatedly until I could find a spot that would hold it pretty well, and then I put a piece of wood over top of them to hold them in. So the length of the tent stakes, for those purposes, if you have loose soil, they're just too short. Tent stakes are very affordable. If you live in an area that does have loose soil or sand, I would recommend getting the little auger style tent stakes for your guy outs. As far as the shelter itself goes, if you're going to have calm winds, it's not going to be real windy. I think the little ones do okay, but that was one of my complaints about the first Onewind products I bought, the tent stakes. Just the way they're designed, they have the notch on the one side, and they have several of them. Several of mine bent at those weak spots, and a couple of them actually broke. And so other than that, I think the lack of sufficient number of tent stakes and guy lines, and the design and the size of the tent stakes is really the only complaints I could have about this shelter. I really like it. I love the fact that it's olive drab, and it just blends in. As you can tell, all of my stuff that I use is subdued or camouflaged. As a matter of fact, I'd like to see this produced in camouflage. I mean, even just traditional woodland camo, I think would be really nice. And as far as bivy shelters in general go, having a tarp to be able to do things outside of the tent under shelter is always a great idea. I always have a poncho with me. I always have a tarp available, smaller tarps. It doesn't need to be big, but having something like that in addition to this is just a convenience you might want to consider. There's a lot of things that I do that I probably just wouldn't want to try to do under that, like unzipping it, pulling the fly out, and trying to process firewood or trying to cook under it or things like that. It just it's just a little too small, doesn't have enough coverage for that. But here we go. My diarrhea of the mouth has just concluded. I am going to shut up and drink my Joe. I'm in the process of, tearing things down And the thought of having the poncho or an extra tarp to work under, sort of like playing around, we have this fly and we can stake it out with guy lines. You can pull up the corners of the bottom section and roll that up. If you were much more nimble than I with my bad knees, you would have some limited shelter in here to do things like if you're cooking with an alcohol stove, something like that, you're boiling water, it could probably give you ample room to do that. Have a little bit of shelter anyway, and not as much shelter as what I would prefer, but it's still shelter. And I think that's, you know, that's another little feature that you have to play around with to see if or how it's going to work for you. But if in a pinch, I could use this as opposed to an additional tarp or anything like that if I needed to do something when it was raining. Of course, you're going to have weight on the top of the fly, and it's going to be draining off at different spots. So eventually it's going to get into where you are. It's going to drain in if you're not a little bit of a rise where you're sitting, but that is a possibility. Yeah, after I tore it down, getting ready to break camp, I started thinking about it. It was like, okay, first time setting it up, sort of clumsy, didn't really know how it was going to go. And so I just spent the last half an hour setting it up, tearing it down, setting it up, tearing it down. So I did that a total of 6 times. And so by doing that, I'm conditioning myself to where I can deploy it per memory much more quickly than taking it out and trying to figure it out each time I do. So with all things, practice makes perfect, right? Well, I was definitely able to get tear down a little bit faster, but set up and tear down anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. And it all depends upon, you know, did I drop a tent stake? Did I misplace the pole bag? Is the tent stake sticking? And the repositioning of that. And if all of your stake placement is good, you don't have any come out, you very easily can set this up 3 to 5 minutes, which I think is excellent. So I just wanted to share that with you. And it was actually because it was so easy to set up and tear down, you know, by the time I did it the last time, it was more or less I was competing with myself. Can I do it faster this time and do it correctly? So the bottom's a little damp, so when I get back home, I'm going to have to hang it up and let that dry out. And the one thing with any water treated nylon, you definitely want to get it completely dry before you store it away. You know, bad things happen to waterproofed synthetics when they are left in a damp environment to where things can grow. It starts breaking down that water treatment,
and it's not good. So, you know, you could like completely ruin your investment after one use if you store it incorrectly. Well, folks, there you have it. There's my take on the Onewind Skyshade Tarp Tent. And I like it very much. I think it's excellent. I personally feel that for the retail price and the quality you're getting, the design, I personally think it's worth it. I do want to thank Onewind for sending this to me and allowing me to test it out and give an honest review. The reason I'm saving that little bit of information to the last is a lot of times when I say so-and-so sent me this, automatically they're all another commercial, and they'll you know, they'll move on to other things. And so that's what I'm going to start doing with any of the stuff that I review that has been sent to me. I'm going to let you know about it, but I'm going to do it at the end, and that way I can just get on with it and not have to do an advertisement. I am not an affiliate. I have not been paid anything extra. I've just been given the tent to do a review on, and I will be using this a good bit more. And I know this is a crazy thing to say, but hopefully I have the opportunity to use it in inclement weather, like a good downpour, so I can actually see how well it is actually made and how well the design keeps me dry while I'm in it. Well, folks, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.